I wasn't planning on making this video today, but something happened this morning and I just feel kind of shocked by it, and I wanted to come here and discuss it with all of you. Hi weaving friends. So this morning I sent out my weekend edition newsletter. This is my free newsletter. I send it out every single Friday in Australia, Saturday likely if you are somewhere else. And I just put a little bit at the start of the newsletter about something that I see crop up in the weaving community from time to time, and it's something that needs to be talked about. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about snobbery. Whether it is yarn snobbery, whether it is equipment snobbery, whether it's loom snobbery, it is someone being made to feel as though they are a lesser person, or that they're not welcome in their weaving community, or that they are somehow lower down than those around them simply because they don't have a particular type of loom or they don't use a particular type of yarn. So after I sent out the newsletter, I was actually shocked by how many people replied and sent emails back to me saying, this has happened to me. I've heard people say that they've purchased their first rigid heddle loom, which is quite an investment for most people, and been told by a more experienced weaver that they've just wasted their money. I've heard people say that someone has said to them that their loom should be used for fire kindling. I've heard people say that other weavers have said to them that they're not a real weaver because of the type of loom that they're weaving on. And I've heard people be completely disparaging if there is a weaver who is not using the type of yarns that somebody else thinks are the best yarns. You can probably guess my stance on this whole thing. Basically, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's harmful. And I think that it says a lot more about other people who are saying these things to you than it does about you. Basically, and I've said this on here before, hurt people hurt people. It's not a well-adjusted kind of person who is going to be saying those things to you, and what they really are is a bully. Another thing that you will find with these kind of people is that they think that the things that they have define them as a person. And of course we know that that could not be further from the truth. So what can we do about this kind of thing when it happens? Okay, if you have been to a weaving group or a guild or some other kind of group where other weavers have made you feel inferior specifically because of the materials or equipment that you were using, I think first of all we need to call it out. Don't be afraid to defend yourself in the actual moment that it happens. You have every single right to do that. And I know for a lot of us it would just be so hurtful and a terrible moment, and you might not know what to say. In that case, I think you need to address it. Take it further, perhaps not in that moment, but later on. So you want to find who's running this group, you want to find who is in charge of the guild, whatever it is, and you want to tell them exactly what happened and how you felt in that moment and why, and be very specific about it. You can say, this person said this to me about the loom that I was using, and it made me feel like I was inferior, it made me feel like I wasn't welcome in the group. Now hopefully, if you have a good leader of the group, they will absolutely call that out with the person or people responsible. They'll do something about it. Okay, now you're going to have the situation sometimes where one of the leaders or the leader is the perpetrator of the comment or of making you feel like that. In that case, you don't need that group. You don't need those people. You don't need that negativity. So I still think it's important to tell the leader about it, tell them, if it was them who did it to you, tell them how it made you feel and why, with the hope that they will learn and understand and, perhaps feel sorry for it. And moving forward, they will change and be different and try to be more welcoming to all kinds of weavers. But if you don't get any joy there, just wipe the dust off your feet and move on. I know it can be hard to find a weaving community if that's something that you really feel that you need or would benefit from. Try to find another one somewhere else if you can, and if that fails, go online. There are some great communities online, some great groups. You can join my Facebook group. You are so welcome to join in my free weaving lessons group, where people are always kind and encouraging and welcoming. And if they ever weren't, you better believe I would be calling that out. I do think that by talking about this and sharing experiences, we can make small changes. Of course, there are going to be some people who are just so on their own agenda that they're never going to understand, they're not going to care if they hurt you, that you just have to leave those people to themselves. You can't really help them. But there are going to be those who, perhaps in an off moment, on an off day, will say something that they just don't realize is going to have an impact on the person that they're saying it to. And so if you address that with them, then possibly they are going to be really sorry for it. And more importantly, they're going to change their behavior in the future. All right, so I want to take a minute to go over some options. If you are wanting to weave and you haven't started yet, or you're thinking about it or whatever, and all you see is people with fancy looms, and all you see is people spending heaps of money on everything they could possibly need in order to weave. Well, I want to assure you, first of all, that it's not like that everywhere. There are certainly people who are weaving on homemade looms, on the cheapest things that they can find, just so that they can make a start. And especially in these economic times where so many people are doing it tough, I still want people to know that weaving is an accessible hobby to them. Okay, so here are a couple of examples. This is a pot holder loom that my husband made with some wood and some nails. You may already have materials around your home, or that you could get somewhere else for free to make something like this, and you could start making squares of fabric. Here's another example. This is a cheap frame loom. These are readily available online. They're usually $10 to $20 or thereabouts. Pretty affordable if you want to get started. Often they will come with a little bit of yarn just to get you going as well. And they will come with usually a shuttle, perhaps a beater, basically everything you need to weave a piece of fabric on this loom. This is a perfect place to get started, and it's very easy to get started. It's easy to warp and it's easy to weave on, and it's not going to cost you a huge amount. Here's another example. This is my toy loom. I'm actually at the moment working on a YouTube video for a project for this toy loom. I want to prove to people that you do not need big fancy looms in order to make beautiful things. And I think that the video that I'm working on right now will show that to you. Now this one is it's around the $40, $45 mark on Amazon at the moment. So it's a slightly more investment than the other couple of looms that I just showed. But of course you can see it's a little bit more complex. It has 2 heddles, it has a beater, it has sheds that you can manipulate, all that kind of stuff. Look out for that video that's coming up if you're interested in that. And I'll leave a link to this loom and the frame loom and anything else that I talk about down below in case you want to check it out. So those are just 3 options that you can start weaving super cheap. You can make your own backstrap loom. You could go out and gather some sticks and construct some sort of loom with those. You can go to a thrift shop and see what you can find there. I have seen some weavers find some excellent looms in great condition in thrift stores for like 20 bucks. You will also find all manner of yarns at your thrift stores. You can even buy like knitted garments and unravel the yarn if you're after a particular type of yarn. You can look on Facebook Marketplace and see what's available there. You can go to deceased estate sales. There's just so much you can do to get weaving for really cheap prices. Now, I feel like somebody is going to look at this video and say, well, how can you give this kind of advice when you've got an expensive table loom sitting next to you and you've got a great big floor loom sitting behind you? Well, I do feel qualified to talk about this because I haven't always had all of this equipment. And the truth is that I didn't come from a family that was wealthy. I have lived most of my adult life either below, on, or slightly above the poverty line. And it's only through God's blessings and very hard work that I've been able to get to the point of having my own studio and looms that I can use. Another point is that I'm not a beginner weaver. And so I am talking to beginners, people who want to get started, or people who have made a start but come across this kind of negativity. So at this point, I want to ask you to comment down below if you have been the victim of this kind of bullying. You don't have to name any names or give any personal details, but tell us, how were you bullied? Was it the loom? Was it the yarn? Was it something else to do with weaving? Your lack of knowledge, maybe. People weren't understanding of where you were at as a beginner. That can happen too. And then I also want you to comment, and I know that this is a little bit of a harder one, but I want you to comment if you have been the perpetrator of putting somebody else down for these reasons. Because hopefully you've realized and you're sorry for that. None of us are perfect. I mean, if I was to go back over my life and think of all the things that I've said and done that I'm not proud of, there's just so much. But I think that a part of moving forward and being better is admitting fault and then making some sort of reparation. So the reparation can be saying, yes, I am sorry that I did that. Or that wasn't very nice of me. But it taught me that it doesn't help anyone to do that. And I also want to encourage you, if you have ever been on the receiving end of any of this kind of negativity, I want to say to you, don't let anyone steal your dreams. If it's your dream to be a weaver, however that looks for you in your situation at this time in space, you can do that, and you don't need the permission of anyone around you. Well, friends, thanks for joining me today, and let's keep the discussion going in the comments below. I really look forward to hearing your experiences. And until next time, happy weaving, however that looks for you.